Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Hassan. Welcome to my live stream. It's April 2nd, 2025. And we got news that the Republicans retained the two congressional seats in Florida, which was expected, but wasn't expected was that Elon Musk's multi-million dollar campaign to hack the Wisconsin Supreme Court didn't work. And apparently people in Wisconsin came out in droves. And so that's really good news and heartening. Honestly, folks, there's so much coming at us. Major institutions that we have relied on for safety and protection, from everything from environmental hazards to health hazards like pandemics and measles outbreaks, and everything is being dismantled at record speed. I heard that the Heritage Foundation Project 2025 person was quoted as saying that his project has succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. And if you remember back when Donald Trump was running for the election, saying, no, 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 nothing to do with Project 2025. So what's happening, as I see it, is just a lot of great people getting fired from very essential jobs. Many of them are veterans. Many of them had voted for Trump and now are very disillusioned, very angry, upset, and confused. And we're seeing some of them messaging on social media. But the terrain right now is a lot of the social media is being controlled by bad algorithms and bad actors and disinformation actors. So what's increasingly important, and why I feel obligated to do live streams to connect with those in the public, is because we need trustworthy sources of information to rely on. And there are a number of scholars that I rely on for information. And I can tell you that I'm spending a lot less time myself on social media. And I think before I reshare or confirm or like things, because there's so much mis and disinformation that's happening that's very sophisticated. And I just want to encourage more and more people to understand the gravity of the moment that we're in. And there's a big mass mobilization protest happening this Saturday. I believe it's called Hands Off. So if you're near a major city, look it up. I believe it's organized by Indivisible or networks of people associated with them. And I do think that we need to focus on messaging that's going to help and not hurt. And in order to understand, one needs to take the time to learn about the influence continuum, the bite model, understand we don't want to amplify disinformation. I see this all the time where people are, quote, retweeting disinformation, but they're putting out the disinformation in their quote retweet. Not a smart idea. We want to put our message out, and so we can cite something, but we don't want to keep repeating disinformation. And I really want people to be reaching out to people who are now leaving Trump and MAGA angry because they've lost their jobs, their vets, and they're losing their benefits. The whole Signalgate outrage. Thank you for putting up the website for folks, handsoff2025.com. Yeah, so what we want to try to do, we have a limited amount of time in each of our lives, and we want to use a portion of it to fight and not flee. and not overload ourselves so we get so burned out and numb that we're ineffectual. And I'm needing to schedule a vacation soon and looking at options and possibilities. But in the meantime, we have a great interview with David Lane that came out on my Substack and my YouTube. We're going to be ramping up our YouTube efforts more and more, and I'm going to be doing more things like Zooms with clinicians who've taken our course. We have the course workbook going to be published any minute, and some other exciting news to say. I'm sure there's more topics we're going to get to, but let's see if there are any comments or questions that people want to give me at the moment. And if not, I can continue to say that I've been working with one of my people on a 30-minute video describing deprogramming, why I'm against forcible deprogramming, how traumatic it was for me and for others, even though we're grateful to be rescued. The technique, the method was very, very early stage because there was no other alternative. But there are authoritarian cults that are trying to paint me with a broad brush, saying that I'm a terrorist because I did 12 involuntary deprogrammings in 1976 and 77 before I spoke out against forcible interventions, in particular because Japan has dissolved my former cult, the Moonies, because of their against the public good. So there's a campaign that's getting generated that I'm an anti-cult terrorist, and I'm a love guy. Study my work. And if anyone tells you that I've been kidnapping and beating and torturing and I'm a religious bigot, it's just plain BS. And they make up shit. So I stand on my reputation, my work of 49 years. Let's see, we have a comment. David says, social media is seemingly a cult all its own. The world has become like a high controlled cult. And I say that having been in the JWs for 25 years, indoctrinated before opening my eyes. Yes, social media, Blue Sky seems to be the least noxious, as well as LinkedIn, although my people are posting a lot on Instagram these days. If you haven't checked out the Center for Humane Technology, humanetech.com, and their Your Undivided Attention podcast, go to humanetech.com, put in Stephen Hassan, and check out my interview and what we were saying about social media creating a trance-like state that undercuts critical thinking. I think you'd enjoy that. Thanks, Dave, for that comment. Joey Weiser, how would you rate the seriousness of the MAGA cult compared to other cults we know in popular culture? No comparison, because and I really encourage people to get The Cult of Trump and listen to it or read it. I talk about Trump having malignant narcissism, compare him with Jim Jones, Moon, and Hubbard of Scientology. But I say there are cults controlling Trump who have authoritarian cults telling their followers that we're following Trump. So it's not just a single MAGA cult. And on top of that, now we have another cult of the tech bros, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Zuckerberg, and probably Bezos and others are now promoting a network state kind of theory where they don't even want governments. They want to be bigger than governments and control governments because they can control information and communication. So we're in a state of such uncertainty and flux, and we have China, which is a rising power, totalist authoritarian cult. Today, I listened to a New York Times report on their daily audio podcast about Shenyang and Falun Gong, which is a Chinese mind control destructive cult. And they do the Epoch Times that was putting out propaganda for Trump and MAGA. So I definitely check out the New York Times excellent reporting, although they keep calling it a religion instead of a cult or a destructive authoritarian cult. But, if it quacks like a duck and walks like a duck, has feathers like a duck, yeah, we can do a DNA test, but it's probably a duck. The Art of Starting. Dr. Hassan just saw a 4-minute Christian nationalist ad on YouTube that would not allow skipping or reporting until it played through. I also had anti-vax posts from accounts I never follow. Yeah. So really, folks, we need to be understanding Musk has put his people into our government-sensitive computers. We can't assume anything is private anymore, and that we have supercomputers now, quantum computers coming online with AI. And we're in an age of psychological warfare. So we say at Freedom of Mind, it's your mind and only you should control it. And in order to do that, you really need to know yourself and your values. You need to understand the influence continuum and the bite model and the characteristics of malignant narcissists. And you really need to build trust pods in real life with community, friends, and family. And if you have a family member or friend who's still thinking that Trump won the 2020 election and that he's not a fascist who wants to destroy the Constitution and the checks and balances, then start warmly saying, I miss you. I want you back in my life. If you are okay with it, we can avoid politics, but I want you back in my life, because we need to create an exit ramp for all of these millions of people who are going to be exiting the belief in the cult of Trump. And a lot of these people don't like Elon Musk at all, I should add. I'm not an expert in social media. I'm hoping more experts will advise us so we can advise you. I interviewed Maritza Shaka from Stanford's cyber security that wrote a book called The Tech Coup, Saving Democracy from Silicon Valley. That was a very important interview if you didn't catch it. And we need safeguards for our minds, and we have to protect our family and our friends. And that includes, I'm hearing from people who are saying, my parents have gotten radicalized, and super intelligent friends, that lifelong friends, are now like cutting off contact because somebody's protesting against Trump. So let's work together, especially former members who've exited an authoritarian group like the Mormons, like the JWs, like Falun Gong, like Children of God, like Scientology, Krishna, the family, Jeffrey Charlotte's group that does the national prayer breakfasts. We need to network together, those of us who've experienced what it's like to be free after exiting an authoritarian cult. And we need to, anyone who's willing to share your stories. We want to destigmatize the idea that only weak, stupid people could ever fall for a cult. We just know that that's not true. And there are many brilliant people who've been deceived and manipulated and radicalized and come out the other side and are becoming academics, becoming therapists. So it's really a battle now against authoritarianism, whether it's communist authoritarianism on the left, right-wing authoritarianism with the Nazis, whether it's libertarian authoritarianism. We just need to take a stand for human rights. And that includes women's rights, gay rights, trans rights, indigenous rights, rights of children, anti-trafficking laws need to be upheld. And folks in the trafficking space who are experts love my bite model and influence continuum because it explains fraud, force, or coercion in detail. Let's see, we have another thing from Polo Huntus. What can we do to stay properly informed? Do you recommend any credible news programs? Also, what can we, the public, do to protect ourselves from the propaganda? I wonder if it's wise to escape the USA. I think that reality is that we have an authoritarian thing happening all over the world. And if you think that things are going to be way better for you in another country, you really want to do long and hard research on the pros and the cons of exiting the US. Because honestly, the US is way bigger than Germany. We've had 70 years of democracy in this country, lots of problems, but nevertheless, incredible freedoms and progressive, policies that have moved forward. I've been using ground.news. They aggregate news stories and say this is how progressives are covering it, how conservatives are covering it. These are the more mainstream news stories on a particular subject. I tend to see Associated Press because they're independent. I tend to look at that first. I tend to look at The Guardian, which is a UK publication. But I read Heather Cox Richardson. There's a number of people that I trust as scholars that I rely on. But the bottom line is we can't know it all, and we shouldn't know it all. We don't want to operate on overload. People like me, because I'm a PhD scholar on undue influence and wrote The Cult of Trump, feel an obligation to continue my expertise as long as I can do it safely in the United States. And so here I am in Massachusetts and saying, screw you, Nazis and authoritarians. And could I disappear in the middle of the night? Yeah. I hope not. And could I be sued for speaking the truth? Sure, because money can sue anybody. And hopefully there'll be law firms coming to my support and aid. We'll see how it goes. But I think we have to keep hopeful and focus on what we can do within our power to do. And that includes self-care. Go dancing, go listen to music, go in the woods, play with your dogs and cats, and go hang out with friends and have meals. See, Harry's quite contrary, cute. I've been struggling with that with family. I completely agree. It's just hard after all the damage has been done to not be angry with them. I totally get that you're angry and hurt, and that you've said many bad things, and they've said many bad things. But the key thing is not to operate from your emotions, but to operate from your frontal cortex, and know that people leave these bubbles. They leave these authoritarian cults and believe that, and have patience. Control your own internal state. If you feel like you're getting triggered and you're going to say something that's going to be harmful to building rapport and trust again with your family member or friend, just take a long, deep breath, exhale, say you have to go to the bathroom, take a few minutes, put some cold water, and if you can't continue resourcefully, just say you're not feeling up to it. You'd like to continue this, but you want to have a respectful, warm, active listening interaction with your loved one. And thanks, Nancy Wallace, for a super chat donation of $10. And if anyone's listening to this with philanthropic foundations that they know of, I'm putting a call out. I would like $25,000 a month to continue my operations here without relying on counseling and coaching clients, so I can do more courses and books and develop what my ideas are for messaging. And I've been waiting for a grant or waiting for some white knight to ride in and say, good work, Steve. You've been doing it for 49 years. Here's some help. Hasn't happened yet, which is why we've been asking for subscriptions and donations and things like that. But I just see the essential nature of the freedom of mind work for the planet and how to get it out in different languages to the people of the world. Because my experience is most people are good, but most people have no clue how to discern the difference between ethical and unethical communication. They have no clue about the bite model. They don't understand dissociative disorders, etc. Okay, let's see. This is not of a fashion house. I'm not sure if I said that right. What do we say when politicians are clearly Nazi sympathizers? What do you say to whom is my question. Um, if it's not clear, I am Jewish. I grew up conservative Jewish. I've been part of Jewish communities for 27 years now. I'm a progressive. I don't like Netanyahu. I don't like the extremist, ultra-Orthodox people in Israel who don't think I'm Jewish because I don't believe as they do. And I have a woman rabbi, which by their perspective is not legitimate. I say that's not my understanding of Judaism, and they shouldn't control. Likewise, people who are Nazis who say that Jews are controlling the world and we are at the root of all problem. This is an ancient anti-Semitic messaging that's been going on for centuries. And if you stop and really think about things, try to get out of a binary of all or nothing, good versus evil, us versus them, and understand reality is usually a lot more complex, and that often a person isn't all bad or all good. And if somebody is saying, I was just on a Zoom, and most of the people said when Elon Musk did the Zig Heil that it wasn't a Zig Heil. One of the members said that he saw pictures of other politicians making exactly the same gesture as Elon Musk, but it wasn't called a Zig Heil. I beg to differ. I know that there was some pictures floating around the internet with images of Democrats and others, waving. But the fact that Elon Musk went to Germany, talked about free speech and how they shouldn't censor hate speech, but he's censoring people who are criticizing him and protesting him, and suing Tesla owners and such. It's just, let's just breathe, go day by day, focus on what you can do, and understand that we just have incredible amount of uncertainty. And those people with resources, in my opinion, should be really thinking about their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren and the future of freedom on planet Earth, and think about supporting people who are spending their lives fighting authoritarianism. So Let's go on. I've started referring to it as mind hacking. Yep, I agree with that analogy. To step away from the reaction people have to the word brainwashing. So the bottom line is that the right wing has done a much better job learning social psychology and applying it, taking words and changing their meaning a lot based on the work of Frank Luntz, the right-wing strategist who wrote the book Words That Work. Switching the meaning of a word, projecting it on their opponents, etc. I just interviewed a sociologist who's studied mind control cults, and we literally talked about how cults is not an okay word, or brainwashing is not an okay word, but look it up in the dictionary. And I too, for many years said I don't like the word brainwashing because it creates an image of a blackboard with writing on it that you take a sponge and wash. And that's not a dissociative disorder. A dissociative disorder is you have a self that's suppressed by a programmed self. So it's a different thing. But the bottom line is use words that work with who you're trying to communicate with. And it is very helpful to find terms. And my model is the BITE model of authoritarian control. And if that works for you, I appreciate you sharing it, downloading this, posting it, passing it out, putting it on your Facebook page or wherever else, so that we can have a common understanding that all influence is not the same. And check out bitemodel.com and do the 40 question thing on a healthy group or relationship or an unhealthy one. See what number you get on the influence continuum. It's free and anonymous. Let's see. Carla's loving wife. People fleeing this country. Is this a true example of fight or flight? Yeah, I think so. So when threatened, people fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Fawn is succumb to the aggressor. And I think standing up against evil, and I mean evil, people who are bullying, people who are denying innocent people their due process, their rights, doing things that are going to put many people's lives in danger. And though everyone has to make their own decisions, I've heard of people making analogies to Germany's 1933. And so people have to get out before they can't get out. And I don't know, but it seems to me like America is very different. We have 50 states, and we have a lot of people who I think are waking up to the reality of the terror that is being done on us. And we need to stand up and do everything we can to actively resist. And it's probably going to be a multi-year project. And if everybody leaves who cares about America and cares about freedom, then what's going to be left are the uneducated Christian nationalists or others who are going to be, doing whatever they're told to do, including turn in their neighbors. If their neighbors wrote something on social media against the administration, that's what we're now seeing with people coming to the U.S., academics and others. They're asking to see their phones and reading their social media to see if they're critical of the administration. That is, talk about censorship. That is really bad. I want to thank Christine H. for Super Chat $9.99. Thanks Hannah for TikTok for the gifts and support. Thanks Hannah. And I want to tell you, one of my people said she checked the cult of Trump at her local library and they're all taken out. And I wanted to put out the idea that if you live in a community and you've read my book and you know its value, buy a copy and donate it to your library, and talk to the head librarian and see if they can order some more. And we want to thank Be Heard on TikTok for the gifts as well. And I'm very ambivalent about being on TikTok. It's very clear it's Chinese, and they're doing algorithms and gathering Americans' data. And my people are like, Steve, you got to get your message out. And so they're putting out. We're doing this live stream. And I can say I've been banned twice from these live streams on TikTok because I mentioned a certain government that was responsible for all the critical research on brainwashing in the 50s and 60s. And the government starts with a C and ends with an A. JC, once I learned from you about projection by cult propagandists, it is everywhere from the right-wing media and leaders, but then they just project projection. How do you help people distinguish facts versus lies? So I want to be clear. My understanding of what's happening is that foreign actors are conspiring with American actors, whether they're Christian Dominionists, Opus Dei, Falun Gong, and Epoch Times, the Moonies, and the Washington Times, etc. And the effort is to make the left more extreme, make the right more extreme, infiltrate the left to be against each other. So there's internecine fighting. Do the same on the right because they want to create chaos. They want everyone in the middle to be so anxious and so uncertain. They don't know what's up and what's down. And I don't know about the folks listening to this, but I stand here. I'm actually sitting. I sit here having grown up when there was radio, and then we got black and white TV, then we got color TV, and so my grounding is in the real world, not the digital space. When the world went digital and I got a smartphone, I got a website and all of that. So I have a perspective where I want to be in my body in real life as my anchor. And if you're not interacting with human beings all day, but you're on a frickin' phone for 8 to 10 hours a day, your brain is getting hacked because we're not digital. Our brains are amazing organisms, and we're rewiring our brains to this. And so when you're saying, how do we discern lies from truth? Fact check. There are fact-checking entities still functioning. And again, it comes back to experts that are trustworthy, that you can verify, and use your common sense also. And it's okay to suspend decisions. Like, it could be this, it could be that. We'll wait and see. It's okay. You're anchored in the here and now. And don't overload yourself too much is my best advice. Jewel 88, I really would like to speak with you about this cult T-Bro that I joined that uses militant equipment to stalk and sexually assault us. I believe it may be the MK Ultra, but I am not sure. So go to bytemodel.com and fill it out according to your experiences. It will ask you where in the pyramid, or if you were a fringe member, it will give you a number of how authoritarian it is. Regarding the use of the term MK Ultra, that really referred to a CIA covert program in the 50s and 60s that was shut down, according to John Gettinger, the chief psychologist. However, there's continuing research by intelligence agencies around the world on neuroscience, on social psychology. They're analyzing everybody's reactions to posts, and supercomputers and AI are profiling each voting American with what buttons can be pressed in what order. So what I'm trying to say is that what we're experiencing now is far more sophisticated than MK Ultra. And when people, because trust me, a lot of people come to me and they say, I think I'm being stalked by, major governments around the world. And I ask them, so what do you have or know that's of interest to them? Are you a billionaire? Are you a celebrity? Are like, no, I make pizza at the local pizza. So why would they spend time and energy and assets stalking you is my question. And when they have no answer, then I start to wonder whether anyone's really stalking them or the people are feeling stalked because of messages that are coming at them through algorithms. So it's really good to step back, get offline for a week, let your brain rest, sleep 7 to 9 hours a day, and reality test. And I'm not seeing many people these days privately. And honestly, I am expensive and also can only afford to do a few pro bonos given how hard I'm working. But understand that if you're very high profile, you've written books, you're a scholar, there are credible threats, it's very different than an average citizen saying, I'm being targeted by a cult. And I definitely recommend, if you did leave a group you believe is an authoritarian cult, write down your experiences. Look for other people who share your experience, because there's strength and comfort in numbers. Let's see. Julie says, hi, doctor. As an American, I feel it's my duty to say screw you to tyrants. I always enjoy getting mindful updates from you and appreciate your strength. Bravo for standing up to these greedy traitors. I say screw you to tyrants, if you haven't noticed. Because I still can. There's free speech still until I'm muzzled. I'm still very upset that my TEDx Mid-Atlantic thing that I was a participant in on TEDx Mid-Atlantic on dismantling QAnon was taken off of YouTube as hate speech and has not been reinstated despite all efforts. And to me, that's censorship, because there was nothing hateful. It was just explaining that QAnon was a psyop that was directed to ensnare millions of people into conspiracy stuff. Okay, let's move on. Richard, Steve, could you explain a narcissistic personality disorder? It's in the DSM and all the unfortunate symptoms that Trump displays. Thank you. Sure. So the latest theories is that people have personality disorders, particularly narcissistic personality disorder, because of lack of secure attachment with their primary parent in the first few years of life. And it's very important for an infant, even in utero, to feel loved and the center of attention, to get its needs met, to be loved. And when that isn't present, or it's present sometimes and then given another time, it creates either disorganized or insecure attachment of different types. I've been talking about, with the cult of Trump, a definition that isn't in the DSM-5. It was created by Erich Fromm, the famous social psychologist, when he was analyzing Adolf Hitler. He used the term malignant narcissism, and I have the list on my Freedom of Mind website, freedomofmind.com, but it covers things like regular narcissism, grandiose, self-centered behavior, fantasies of power, success, and attractiveness, need for praise and admiration, sense of entitlement, and lack of empathy. the inability to step into other people's shoes and feel the world from their point of view. But it adds the antisocial pathological stuff, like thinking that they're above the law, the pathological lying, the interpersonally exploitative, sadistic, harassing and silencing, sounds familiar, violence, paranoia, and inability to trust friends. So the thing is that if you learn, if you download this from my website and share it with your family and friends, share it with your children, you're going to give them the tools for who to watch out for the rest of their lives if they're displaying these characteristics. Like, you want to choose people with integrity, with character, who has values, who believes in the golden rule, don't do to others what you don't want done to you, who's basically honest and compassionate and caring. You'll avoid 80 to 90% of destructive mind control cults. And when you ask me, but Steve, how could people not see Trump displays every single one of these things in spades? I say it's because they haven't studied Eric Fromm and they haven't read The Cult of Trump. Because Eric Fromm, wrote this before Trump, became prominent in any way, shape, or form. But it is the gold standard for me for analyzing cult leaders' personality types. I hope that sufficed for answering your question. Let's see, have a 5. Do you think Trump is actively punishing America for electing Biden in 2020? I can't help but feel he's intentionally destroying America, weakening our national security, economy, public health. I think it's much bigger than Trump. I interviewed Craig Unger and Yuri Shvets, a former KGB official who emigrated to the US when the Soviet Union fell. And Craig wrote a book called American Compromat. And Yuri Shvets said, I was in the KGB when we recruited Donald Trump. And if you study the history of Donald Trump and Russia, when he came back from his first trip to Russia, he took a full-page ad against NATO. And if you have that lens and look at all of Trump's activities, you can see that he's actively trying to destroy the United States of America as the Soviet Union fell. He wants to dismantle the United States of America and be a fascist dictator. That's my scholarly take based on years of research and testing, and I think there's overwhelming evidence of the Russian connection with Trump, and there's more, which I can go on another time. So we have put into power forces bent on dismantling the United States of America and its Constitution. That's why American citizens have to stop being in denial and wishful thinking, treat this as the emergency that it is, make this a priority to actively resist, and to reach out to human beings and make sure they have the information they need to understand what's being done to us here. Let's see, CJ Preeb. Unfortunately, this is why you don't have tons of viewers, in my opinion. All the people who aren't your fans aren't spending their time online. This is an issue for all wise content creators like you. I'm open to suggestions. I'm really just a guy from Queens, New York, who got recruited into the Moonies and was in the room when Moon said we're infiltrating the U.S. government and we want to destroy democracy and create a theocracy and change the Constitution and make it a capital offense for people who violate our rules. That was 1974. And I've spent 49 years going, hello, I'm an intelligent, educated person from a nice family, and my mind got hacked, and this is a real phenomenon. And people walk around thinking only stupid, ignorant people from bad families could ever get into a destructive mind control cult, and it just isn't true. But back to your comment, I don't know how to reach more people other than doing what I'm doing, hoping some celebrities, influencers, philanthropic foundations realize that I have a lot of very valuable information and experience, and they say, let's get your message out more. And let's get you a professional PR firm, and let's find other vehicles than social media to get your work out. And not just my workout, my colleagues. There's a group of us that have been collaborating for many years. John Atack, to mention one, who's the world's foremost expert on Scientology. Joseph Zimhart is an expert on New Age and I Am and Agni Yoga and Ascended Masters. There are many of us that we could work together to promote freedom of mind. Let's see, JC, how does authoritarian parenting style affect people once they are adults if they didn't get therapy and process in healthy ways? Could helping parents be more skilled make a difference in society? Absolutely. Parenting style is absolutely crucial in terms of early influences in how brains develop. And so if you were born into the JWs or the Mormons or in China or Russia, your wiring is going to be towards authoritarianism. Again, I cite my influence continuum, and very briefly, healthy parenting. The parents realize their job is to steward their child to adulthood, to think for themselves, make their own decisions, to do developmentally appropriate parenting, to not think for their kid, not to do corporal punishment, to explain and allow your children to play and to fail and to figure out how to problem solve. Authoritarian parenting is you do what I tell you because I'm your mother or I'm your father. And on this side, it's about wanting to replicate typically what was done to you as a child, where you're more or less trained to think the right way, feel the right way, act the right way, or rebel and exit the family, which is what a lot of people wind up doing. So we could be, as we have people learn before they take a driving test, we could be educating people before we give them a marriage license about healthy parenting styles and how to communicate and how to do conflict resolution and other cool things. Let's see. Miss Catherine on TikTok asks, can you briefly go over the points of thought reform? So the most famous book, the one that helped me in my deprogramming in 1976, was Robert J. Lifton's book, Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. And if you haven't read this book or aren't familiar with Dr. Lifton's work, I have been blessed to know him since 1976. I have numerous interviews with him on video on my YouTube channel. Dr. Lifton interviewed people coming out of Mao's thought reform programs, and he, in chapter 22 of his book, went through 8 criteria that he said if an environment does all 8 of these, then it is a thought reform or brainwashing environment. And I have a blog with his words going and explaining each one. Milieu control, loaded language, sacred science, cult of confession, dispensing of existence, which is the equivalent of cancel culture on the left or the right. So I invite you to come to freedomofmind.com, and actually the longer blogs are now on Substack. just put in Robert J. Lifton or thought reform, and you can watch videos and learn more about his great work and his influence on me. Nancy, any news on whether hypnotic influence was used to sway the 2024 presidential election? Could this be accomplished with many very short, simplistic campaign sign messages on busy highways? So Nancy's bringing up something that's pretty recent for me. I've been hearing from individuals who said, I was going to vote for Kamala Harris, and when I got to the voting station, I was faced with an overwhelming fear of voting for her, so I had to vote for Trump. And an individual who said he was going to vote for Kamala Harris and had an overwhelming compulsion to vote for Trump. And, because I know hypnosis, I know how easy it is to put covert hypnotic suggestions into people's minds. I've been operating on a working hypothesis that has yet to be tested. So I'm not stating that it's a widespread phenomenon, but I think it's also very possible that a lot of the people who intended to vote didn't show up to vote to influence the election. And messaging could have been sent to many, many people who were going to vote for Kamala that it wasn't necessary to vote, or some other type of excuse. And we would need access to all the social media. We would need neuroscientists. And it would take money, time, and a team, but we could analyze some of these videos and some of these hypnotic visualizations and such, and see if we can find evidence that there was something systematic. The fast way would be for a whistleblower to come forward who knows what was exactly done. And possibly over time, this will happen. And then we'll have the keys to that kingdom, if in fact it happened. As far as sign messages on busy highways, I'm going to tell you a very simple hypnotic suggestion. It's called an embedded command that Burger King has used for decades. And it goes like this: aren't you hungry for Burger King now? So, no, I'm not hungry for Burger King ever, because I understand that. But for the average person to hear that jingle or to see a sign like that, it could trigger them to want to go for Burger King. So advertisers have studied what works, what doesn't work, and they used to do focus groups and ask people, would you buy this product? Now they just hook people up because they're wanting to stimulate certain regions of the brain. They're doing eye tracking tests to see where your eyes are going. And if you ever wonder why Big Pharma has all these glossy ads with smiling, happy people, and then they do this super fast thing about how it can kill you in 50 different ways, heart attack, stroke, but nobody, they're getting the message of the happy people, and ask your doctor for this medication. Why would Big Pharma spend millions and millions of dollars if it didn't work to sell their pills? So, and why would a person not trust and ask their doctor, what do you think of this particular medication? Because a lot of the studies are paid for by Big Pharma, and it's not objectively tested. And it's a real question mark about the ethics with Big Pharma. Let's see, Sherry Mesa, even reaching out to colleges that have media programs and offering internships, getting smaller information bites out there would help bring people to your website. Younger people know how to do this. This is part of why I'm doing a live stream. I'm asking for your help. If it's not clear, I am just a guy on a short budget that wants to do more. I want to educate the planet about this. I want everyone to understand. I want everyone to lift each other up and work together and not be kept ignorant and enslaved and with phobias put in our minds, terrorized that if we say something, we're going to be put in jail or arrested or sent to a foreign government jails and where no one will be able to get access to us. This is starting to happen. And so we really want to turn out on Saturday around the country. And mainstream media has not been covering the protests with any veracity, in my opinion. So take videos and share them, and if you want to wear a mask because there is, cameras and such. And also, measles is starting to make the rounds. If you haven't been inoculated, get a vaccination. This whole Robert Kennedy thing is just so upsetting and the top guy resigns because he refused to cooperate with the Trump administration. Sherry Mesa. Oh, you had already mentioned that. Yeah, I already commented on that. Younger people should be helping us to figure out memes that work and amplifying. And I welcome people to go to influencers and say, hey, have you interviewed Dr. Steve Hassan, etc. And frankly, I would appreciate it. I have a limited amount of time, but I feel like getting the word out is crucial while I have the opportunity to do so. Monica says this is a very controversial subject. I understand from adult trans people that the transgender influence has become a cult. Example, going into schools and using chemicals and surgeries on minors. True. Very, very controversial subject. And I have yet to be all this or all that. And frankly, I can verify that I've talked with enough detransitioners now to hear their stories. Many were raised in homophobic churches or cults, no sex ed, and there was no possibility of accepting them as gay, but they were encouraged to transition, and they exited and realizing that they were just gay. A lot of folks on the spectrum, high functioning Aspies, who got co-opted, and my understanding and training from a sexologist, autism expert, that folks on the spectrum usually identify more as bi or non-binary anyway. And so that's a whole topic about their vulnerability to undue influence. They love my models, by the way. Folks on the spectrum love that and the bite model. And then people who are watching hypno porn and otherwise binge watching with AI, being given videos of transitioners, and as well as social contagion. So I can definitely verify that. And I recently talked with a top pediatrician endocrinologist who said that in his research, giving puberty blocking hormones was not permanently bad. He definitely talked about needing psychological evaluation and counseling before giving hormones, cross-sex hormones, or especially surgery. And frankly, I see this as part of the gender wars, as psychological warfare that the right, who are homophobes as a generalization, is doing on the progressives to smear everybody. And I'm for human rights. So when I meet a trans person, I'm like treating them like a normal, happy person. I'm not treating them like a cult member. And if they say that they are not willing to talk to a detransitioner or learn anything about undue influence, then I'm curious why they aren't, if they're so sure about their decisions. Because I really believe we should make informed decisions. on what we do, especially if there could be long-term negative consequences, like surgery. And when you meet somebody who regrets having her breasts removed and losing an octave of her singing voice because her partner was trans and convinced her she was really a man, when you sit with a woman and who tells you her story, you can't not hear it as a real life. And this woman went to the Mayo Clinic, and they did no in-depth psychological profiling. They just kind of ushered her into the path of transitioning, which I think is irresponsible. So I see we're at 2:00 already. Man, the time goes by so quickly. So listen, thanks to my team. Please take a picture of the QR code and check out. We have courses. We have a course workbook coming out, and we have interesting podcasts. And send along questions you want for the next live stream. We're trying to do at least one a week, so we can connect with the broader audience. Thanks, and have a great day.